How do we give every of the 600 million farmers in the world access to a trustworthy regenerative hotline when they have questions or are stuck? It's safe to say that we'll never get there with the current approach, having amazing consultants and advisors who are usually overworked and can never reach enough farmers to really have a large impact. Is there another way? And what's the role of tech, especially the newly hyped and very capable, almost magic-like, large language models like ChatGPT? What are the risks? How do we make sure this knowledge is accessible to all while creating a self-sustaining business and not fall into the trap of gatekeeping? Plus, on top of that, how do we reward the people that have assembled this knowledge in the first place? This is the Investing in Regenerative Agriculture and Food podcast, Investing as if the planet mattered, where we talk to the pioneers in the regenerative food and agriculture space to learn more on how to put our money to work to regenerate soil, people, local communities, and ecosystems while making an appropriate and fair return. Why my focus on soil and regeneration? Because so many of the pressing issues we face today have their roots in how we treat our land and our sea, grow our food, what we eat, where and consume. And it's time that we as investors, big and small, and consumers start paying much more attention to the dirt/soil underneath our feet. To make it easy for fans to support our work, we launched our membership community, and so many of you have joined us as a member. Thank you. If our work created value for you, and if you have the means, and only if you have the means, consider joining us. Find out more on gumroad.com/investing-in-regen-ag. That is gumroad.com/investing-in-regen-ag. Or find the link below. Welcome to another episode. Today with the co-founder of FarmOn, a regenerative hotline, independent farming advice, anytime, anywhere. Welcome, Thimm.
Hey there.
And starting with a personal question, because it's not such an obvious journey, let's say, from the tech world. I mean, from the tech world, you're still deep in the tech world, but combining the tech world and the farm world in one startup, in one venture. What brought you to focus on soil and regenerative agriculture?
Well, I'm actually a software engineer by training, and I've been working in software for the last almost probably 10 years. And I think what we have there is we have 1,000 iterations a day. We can literally go through, tinker around, try out things. And I think this is also exactly what we need when we working together with farms, and everyone needs to kind of try out things, experiment, and so bringing this kind of mindset to problems that really matter, I think, is what really motivated me to switch into this direction. So previously working with AI, machine learning, it's also nice, but usually sometimes the problems are small. Working with soil and working with nature is, I think, one of the most important problems of our times.
And I mean, I think not many people would disagree, let's say, listening to this, if you are in this rabbit hole and listening to this podcast. But what was there a moment that triggered you, or a process into applying that knowledge you have and the experience you have, and not, for instance, I'm curious about if there was a moment or a trigger, and also why not, let's say, start a farm or really leave the tech world for that in that sense. Was there a trigger that made you see soil in a new light, or made you see soil differently compared to before? Was it always there and you were just waiting for the right moment to jump?
No, to be honest, it has not been there like that. So I was studying geography before as well, and I worked with satellite data. I worked with a nature context, I'd say. But reality is that my now partner actually contacted me and was like, hey, do you want to be part of this accelerator program, which is Fresh Ventures? And so we got in touch, and I got interviewed a couple of times for it. And then I joined this accelerator program, and in which yeah, we basically got a masterclass around the food system, about regenerative agriculture, etc. And it has been a very interesting experience for me. And I also met my co-founders there. And this, I think, is really like the moment when I also started to understand like the vastness of the system, of the problem itself. Yeah.
But I'm interested when that call came from your now partner, but then let's say the venture lead or looking or recruitment for Fresh Ventures, which was already focused specifically on the food system. When that question came, like, look, would you be interested in joining a venture studio focused on one theme, basically? What was your first thought? Like, yes, but there's so many other things, or yes, I've been waiting for this call sort of to happen, or ooh, food, interesting, but because it wasn't that you were looking for this in a sense. We were looking for a venture studio focused on food and ag. It was more that the venture studio focused on food and ag found you.
I think it's a serendipity. And I don't know, like it just, how to say that. I was always ready to start a startup, and I've been always working in that field and scene, and I've been doing things before, also independently together with others, and I just saw it as like great opportunity to do something that could potentially have some impact, like since then I've been super grateful that I've been able to go onto this journey, right? Like it's been now almost 2 years that this call came, and I never looked back. So it's great.
and you I will definitely put the links below, actually, to the previous interviews we've done with Bart of Fresh Ventures, where we go deeper into the model and also talking about after the first cohort, which you were part of. And full disclosure, I'm an advisor at Fresh, and I always like to hang around. But then you went into that sort of pressure cooker, learning an incredible amount in a very short time about the food and agriculture system. And at the end, or sort of through the process, found your co-founders, and FarmOn was born. How does that happen? Because I know it's been let's say a meandering river. Like, it's not that you from the first second thought, okay, this makes so much sense, let's build a hotline for regenerative farmers. What was that process like to get to the current shape? And of course, in a startup, things always change. So maybe in a year or 2 years, if we re-interview, FarmOn looks very different. But like, how did it get to the current shape that we are talking now, September 2023, of FarmOn? Like, how does your mind work when you're with your expertise and with your co-founders to get to this?
It's a very good question. So my background has a lot to do with satellite image analysis and doing that at a large scale, and previously for risk assessment. And so coming from that angle, we also started, and we're really looking into like measuring outcomes, measuring practices from space. And that is nice and beautiful, and there's like definitely some use cases for that. But I think one of the key realizations for us was, if you have a trusted relationship with a farmer, you can just call them and just ask them what is growing on the field, right? And so basically how much information and how much like you can like communicate is so much higher when you just like start, for example, a hotline. And so the impact that you can have on a field level is also just much higher. And so I think that is really like this key realization we had. And
the relationship and so far that you can literally call the farmer, take a picture of this, or what is growing now, how is it going, instead of relying on the eyes in the sky and the software and the AI then to turn it into saying something. You said, yeah, but what if we just call the farmer? He or she would know.
Exactly. And I think there's also another big one that is very motivating for us. So if you think about who you're building monitoring and verification kind of tools for, it's like you build a business model on mistrust. And I think what is relevant for us is actually to also what we realize over the time, I think, is to build like a business model that is based on trust to get like with the farmers and us. And so this is really what we are aiming for in this key of our vision now, how we want to go into the future.
Yeah, and then for sure you came to the realization as well that independent farming advice, which is like your tagline, isn't very easy to come by. Like for farmers that are stepping outside, I'm going to use quotes here, or air quotes, the system and want to change, it's very difficult to find independent farming advice. Do you remember when that hit you? Like, look, actually, there's a huge need for knowledge here, and it's not easy to get it in a consistent way, because a lot of farming advice is paid for by input companies, rightfully so. But of course, they want to sell inputs. So, do you remember when that piece of the puzzle hit you?
There's no key moment, I think, that we really had like, oh yeah, this is what we need to do. But what happened is that through talking with a lot of farmers and also talking with a lot of experts and pioneers, we realized that their time is always scarce, right? And like, building basically like a co-pilot, like a tool kit for people who have been trying out things and are also willing to share that is what the system actually needs. And like, we don't need another like FAQ or like knowledge database or so. No, what we actually need is like applicable knowledge that is context specific. And this is where experts and pioneers can really play a role. Like, you can of course read everything online, etc., but like making it applicable, making it like an intelligent action that you're taking, I think that is what we identify as really missing.
And why do you see that not happening at scale? Like, imagine I'm a farmer that has made some small changes or has made some changes, but sort of feels I'm in the dark. Like, the next steps are tricky. What are the current options without FarmOn I have to feel comfortable and confident to take next steps or to answer some of the basic questions I have?
Yeah. So if you're lucky, you know someone that you can contact. And we think that there's WhatsApp groups on which you're going to get help. And there's the one side of things. And like, there's Telegram groups in Germany, for example. And then on the other side, there's like an expert that you can contact that then comes to your farm, but it's very pricey, right? And so like, there's like this difference between like a very pricey solution and like a for free solution where you're at like mercy of somebody answering to you. And also it's precious time also for them to answer, right? And like, so more often than not, it's only a very like short answer that doesn't maybe take into account like your context, because they have been doing it somewhere else and they don't just like quickly write something. And like, so what we want to introduce, or what we already introducing, is like a tier in between where you can get context specific advice by having a conversation with someone, with this expert, but you don't maybe have to pay like all this like money that you would have to pay otherwise if this person comes to your place. And then the second
and
thing
time
is,
as well, because if I have a question before one of the top gurus, advisors, consultants has time to come to my place, the problem might have already, or the question might have already be either irrelevant, or I lost a crop or a season in some cases. Like, there's a timing issue there as well. Like, the chances of me calling somebody and he or she coming to visit tomorrow or today are near zero, probably.
Absolutely.
So not even the cost itself, but also the timing is I think a big piece there.
Yeah, and like, it's a big piece for the experts as well. Like, so essentially they need to go into a car, like take a car, drive sometimes 4 hours, or even have to take a plane to come to your place, right? Like, how often can you do that in a year? Maybe 200 times.
You as
like
a technical person that must sound crazy. Yeah. But then how do you get over that context specific piece? I think is a big question we'll get into. But for your tech brain, and I've known you a bit and know not how it works, but seen you approach problems, that must sound like, yeah, you can do max 150, 200 of these visits, consultants maybe a year, and that's the limit of scale, because you have 24 hours in your day, and even the best one will be booked all the time and just never have the impact he or she can have.
Exactly. And so really scaling these ideas that are currently locked into people's brains is what we need to do to make, regenerative agriculture actually a thing for many people. And
And so how does it work? Let's take me as an example again. I'm a farmer starting to apply some practices to regenerate my soil, but I'd like to take it to the next level. And I have some questions. What does the process look like?
It's very, very simple. So essentially, if you know about us, then you come to our website, farmonapp.com. There's a big button. You click on it, and it brings you to your favorite messaging app. And then in this messaging app, you can just record a voice message, write a text about your problem, your context, etc. Then we will take this on.
Do you give me prompts? What I should answer? Do you give me a script? Make sure you at least discuss X, Y, Z.
Yeah. So exactly, we are guiding you through that process, and then essentially we're asking important questions, so to actually know, for example, where you are, because your location matters a lot, and what your farming methods are, maybe if it's necessary, what kind of machinery you have. So all these questions that add enough context so that then the experts are able to answer this question adequately. And so we basically take on these questions, and then we match you to someone who had a similar experience, or who has been doing exactly that already previously. And they can then, together with you, assess your options. And I think this is also really important to see, we are probably not able to answer every question directly and say this is the answer, but it's more
how likely is it? But so you connect directly me with an expert, and maybe with a conversation like that, it triggers the questions and frameworks I need to think about before applying whatever in my context.
We're really seeing that more like a process, and really trying to lay flat the options or give a second opinion. I think that's also a really important aspect of it. I'm having ideas, and my neighbors maybe also are doing the similar thing, but I just want to have someone else that basically tells me this is probably good. Have you thought about X, Y, Z? And this is really where FarmOn then comes in. And there's limitations, of course, to not being on the field and being able to smell the soil, etc. And but I think there's this back and forth of a conversation that actually enables someone who's maybe not directly from where you are to step into the shoes of you and go on this journey with you together.
And from where are you now in terms of it's September 2023? When you'll be listening to this, it might be October or somewhere far in the future. But let's say we release this early October. What is FarmOn currently? How many of these matches have you made? What are you measuring as success in this case? How many of these conversations have happened? What have you seen there, learned there, surprising?
Yeah.
Has it been working? I think is the underlying question here.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we started this hotline a couple of months ago, and so far we had maybe 60 people, farmers we're working together with. And and these questions are either very specific, or they can also be very strategic, and sometimes it's hard to, of course, know how good the actions were that you were taking after you got our advice. So I think we need to really run through an entire season to properly assess that. But of course, since we have this direct connection with people, we can also get feedback. And so everyone who, after we're answering a question, we've been asking people to rate us. And so far we only got positive results, which is of course very nice. But it is not the true measuring, the true thing that we would like to monitor. But like the true thing we would like to monitor is like how well did this like help you in the long run, right? And that just takes time. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes time for the season or seasons to evolve. And in terms of business model, it's who's paying for this or who will be paying. Is it the farmer paying per question or per connection? What's the model behind that, or the model you're thinking about?
So we are assessing two models at the moment. And right now, during our proof of concept phase, how we're doing it right now, we are running a model that is pay as you want. So after you've sent a request, we ask you to, if it was useful for you, to also contribute to the system or to us, basically, because we are paying the experts. So they are paid no matter what. So that is the first one. And then the second one is organizations who work together with farmers transitioning towards regenerative agriculture. And these organizations are paying a flat fee, and based on that, then can get access to our regenerative hotline for the farmers that they're to be working together with. But yeah, the idea is truly to have it somehow open. If we can keep the pay-as-you-want model as an option, and truly enable everyone who needs it to get access to such advice, that would be our ideal. And this is also something. We are a company of purpose, I think, and the purpose of like distributing this knowledge seems like a very good purpose to have. Yeah.
And until now, like the pay as you want, or pay what value it created for you. How has that been going as an experiment? I'm asking because we've been running most of that, honestly, on the podcast. This has always been free and open to all. And if we created value and you have the means, we always invite you to support and to contribute. And how's it been going with you until now? Small sample set, of course, with 16.
Yeah, to be honest, not very well. Not very well. I think we have still a lot to learn to truly understand how we also communicate our service, like what a good answer is, like how we create this like continuous engagement, maybe if it's needed. Like we don't even know if this is like something people want all the time, or if it's just for specific aspects. And so it's not like that it's a business model yet where we would say, we can go on that, and this is how we're going to make our money. The other direction, working together with organizations, much easier to envision a future in which FarmOn is profitable. Yeah.
And what is in it for and how does the expert side, no, expert is not, like the practitioners that help answering these questions, they get paid no matter what, you said. Is that, do you envision that for them to be a significant part of scalable revenue compared to farm visits and consultancies, or is it more potentially they find more people where they can do these farm visits? Like what part of why would they contribute to this, and why would they be part of the entering machine, let's say? But not the entering machine as in your phone, but literally entering machine.
Yeah. So if they want to, I think they should be able to make a good living out of what we are paying them. But what we actually want to see is, we're talking about practitioners, and I think we would love to see everyone being able to do on-farm experiments and get somehow compensated for that. And so...
Really meaning that the farmers that are also asking the questions at some point will be answering some other questions.
That would be ideal. Like if somebody basically implements something successfully and has really learned and went through these iterations of learnings, to then being able to answer other people, right? And but honestly, there's no end to knowledge, right? There's absolutely no end. And like ideally what happens is like that the practitioners who are answering the questions on our platform are actually going further than they've been like while answering the questions that people are having. And so we see it really like as a collective intelligence system, I think is the name that we have been, how we are phrasing it, where like knowledge gets part of it and gets also applied. And then extra new knowledge will be developed from the people who are interested in doing so. And but yeah, it should be definitely like an attractive way for someone to make an income. Yeah. And that is, I think, also very nice about it. Like we are giving them, like, and we can maybe go into that a bit more detail, but we give them a lot of tools that simplify the process of answering.
Like, for instance?
So,
because for sure they used to like be in WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and have endless questions and photos and let's say chaos. How do you make my life as an advisor or a practitioner that wants to share easier?
Yeah. So essentially, like, first of all, we're buffering everything, right? Like nobody gets their phone number, nobody like contacts the people directly. So it's FarmOn that gets contacted. FarmOn is doing the conversations with everyone. And only when we think like, okay, now is the point that one of the practitioners and experts can intervene or can go into the conversation, then we start contacting the person. And then based on previous answers and based on like satellite data and things that we have developed previously for our monitoring verification process, we give these tools to the expert to get additional context on the farm. And that's like climate data, how was the weather the last 2 years, how's the weather in the next 2 weeks. And so like basically really get like an idea of what is happening. And then we use large language models and ChatGPT to generate answers based on the previous answers people have been giving. And we let them then modify these answers. And so right now, let's say, in 30% of the cases, I think it's even lower, ChatGPT or large language models are able to actually produce an answer that is good. And the other 80% are kind of like taken on by the experts right now. So they're answering this question and they have to modify a lot, right? But over time, maybe for certain parts, on certain aspects and certain questions that came up a lot, like actually it just has to be reviewed. And but like no matter what is happening, there's always like a human that basically looks over it. And at the moment, they have to do quite a lot of work, but over time, this is maybe reduced. And we're seeing business models for experts as well, like when you contribute it to knowledge and it's becoming part of the entire like intelligence system and it's been like reused more often, that then we can compensate you for that as well. So like your time actually reduces over time for certain aspects of the questions that you've been answering over and over again. And you get already like bored of answering them because like everybody has like the same questions when they go towards their transition to regenerative agriculture. And you're like, nah, man, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so like, but you can still get a compensation through us, right? And that I think is really the beauty of it. And you can actually then start to taking care of like more and more difficult and like questions that come in and that you would like to also develop your own expertise in. And so, yeah, I think that is a very nice value proposition for experts working and practitioners working together with us.
Extremely nice, and at the same time, it raises a copyright or like who owns that information or data question, which is a very big one with large language models that have soaked up, let's say, the internet until I think 2021. And now it triggers a massive, like if it then redistribute that or rearranges that into an answer, which is in many cases almost magical, who owns the data underneath? Like, is it me that, like, whoever uploaded that stuff on the internet to begin with? But that's a big question around large language models, which we're going to figure out in a messy way for sure. In this case, do you get some questions around, yeah, but if I keep adding to the system, to this collective intelligence system, my unique, quote unquote, because none of this knowledge is really unique, but my unique knowledge, my unique answers, will I be out of a job at some point? Like, will I, because you of course paint the picture, then you can work on the really difficult ones and not the boring questions, but at some point maybe also some of these collective intelligence systems are able to answer the more difficult questions. Like, what do you say when somebody says, yeah, I will basically answer myself out of a job?
Yeah, I mean, gatekeeping is the evil of all scalability. And I think we really want to make regenerative agriculture the norm. That's the first thing. Like, so I think like sharing knowledge is at its essence, like the most important thing. But you're right. Like, I think the number one concern people have working together with us is exactly that. Like, I'm giving away my like knowledge that I've been working on for like the last 10, 20, 30 years to acquire, right? And we are looking for business models and for intellectual property models that allow sharing revenues based on the knowledge that somebody has gathered over these years. And I think, honestly, like we are talking with people exactly around that topic because that's the number one thing that is coming up. And but I truly believe that there is ways to share all knowledge that you have ever gathered and still make a profit out of this, maybe, and without gatekeeping your knowledge. And I think we need to find a future in which this is possible. Like, it can't be that there's like a few practitioners and experts who then do webinars or something for like a small group of people, because like, how many webinars a year can you do? Like 200, but like we need to transition 600 million farmers in the world, right? Like like till you reach 600 million farmers with all these with your webinars and like with your courses, farm visits, it's impossible. And there's so I think the one answer I can give you here is like we need to find business models that work also for the people who are willing to share their knowledge with us, and that's what we're working on, and we are in discussions with every single expert and practitioner that we are working together with.
Yeah, no, I think it's the crucial question here in the whole large language model world at the moment, but in general as well. How do you create this collective intelligence system and make sure that the people who helped create it, but then of course you get the argument, and it's a very valid one. What about the people 100 years ago? What about the indigenous knowledge we build upon? What about et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? But it's a valid point. But at the same time, your point of 600 million farmers, like we'll never get there with, even if we have 10,000 amazing advisors, but just physically, it's just impossible. And this is a way to potentially use technology in a way to scale that knowledge and to get access to it. So it's that tension that makes it interesting for sure as well. And I can imagine some of the advisors see that potential, like they can suddenly reach basically infinite amount of people and infinite amount of farmers. But I can also see the fear reaction from some others. I can imagine the fear reaction, but at the same time, they probably potentially realize this might lead to, and first of all, an interesting income stream, maybe interesting potentially equity or part of a company, or somehow copyright in a certain way, but also to maybe way more interesting farm visit clients that reach out, and like you can potentially pick and select the really interesting and difficult ones and work on those, while you keep a nice steady or base income through this piece without ever leaving your farm or ever leaving your context.
Yeah. Let me say one more thing about that. And I think like this thinking about I need to gatekeep my knowledge comes with like
scarcity versus abundance. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is really the idea of like this resource, like knowledge is finite, but it's not. It's like, I mean, like we've been developing things over the last 10,000 years, and there's no reason to believe that like we like that the next 1,000 years shouldn't be the same when it comes to agriculture as well. And like we know so little about nature, and like nature's complexities are so like big, and like that I think there's always ways to optimize things and always ways to find ways to be at the pinnacle of knowledge. And I think that's also where we want to be.
It must be exciting for some. For some must be like, whoa, finally I can tap into, but I can see, that it's really that fight or flight response, like abundance or like restricting, holding on, what's this, I've developed this over time and now, etc., etc. And it's just already an interesting sentence there. So it's that tension that you must be dealing with constantly, but at the same time, this unlimited potential of unlocking this knowledge and the realization we only scratch the surface in terms of this knowledge. Like we're really at the absolute beginning, and having that whole group of practitioners practicing and monitoring and observing and connecting and seeing connections there is going to be extremely exciting and extremely necessary.
Fully agree.
And so what is the biggest bottleneck? What's the most difficult piece? I mean, you're raising a round. Maybe business model. What do you see as the biggest barrier or bottleneck at the moment? Again, we're talking September, October 2023.
I think for us, the biggest bottleneck right now is to truly understand like how to create value on a farm. And that might be an answer, and it might be like what we're doing right now, but
the eternal answer,
literally the answer to the farmer, right? Like just giving an answer might not be enough. And so I think truly figuring out how we can create a service that continuously on every day of your farming season, how we can provide value there. And I think that is the biggest bottleneck right now, because we see that farmers are interested, farmers are asking a question or two, and then they also say that they really like the question, the answer or the response that we gave. But many of them are not coming back yet. And so what that means to us is like, okay, people are generally interested, but maybe it's too difficult, for example, like to always come up with like a well-polished question, right? Like it takes me effort. And like, so sometimes we're seeing like, it's very much like people who are like already having a good idea who then are able to formulate the question. And I think we need to find ways to ease this process.
It's like with big language models, prompting it is probably the most difficult thing. And there's now a whole industry starting of how to really ask good prompting questions. And the same was with Google in the beginning, and still now, most people just don't know how to ask questions to Google, or in this case to ChatGPT, or to how to have that conversation and get most out of it. It's very difficult. And so I can completely imagine if I'm a farmer, like I don't even know I know partly my problem, but I don't really know how to translate that into a clear, understandable, well-defined question. That's an art or craft, actually.
Exactly. And then I think so for us, really, like there's like this idea of black box at the moment still, right? Like you ask a question into the void, and then there's someone answering back, right? But we have profiles for every expert that we're working together with, and they know who they are talking with. And it's important for us that it's not FarmOn that is necessarily answering at the moment. It's literally it's this person, and this person is responsible for this question, and they own it. And but yeah, I think we are exploring right now like different ways of triggering.
I mean, they don't own the answer, right? They own you own the information. Like owning here means a different thing than ownership.
Yeah, ownership in this case, it doesn't mean that like we own the answer. We basically, it's our responsibility that it's a good answer. Mm-hmm. But of course, they are the ones responsible for formulating.
Sure.
And so, like ownership, I mean, like you take it on, and it's your responsibility to make
sure
good at it.
Value. Sorry, but I interrupted you on you're working with triggers.
Yeah, and so we are looking basically for other ways of like triggering, like people asking the right questions. And I think so as someone like So the transition starts anywhere. Like it can be like you can be a fully conventional farm, you can be an organic farmer or something, and like at some point you just want to do something differently. And I think having done this step already is really important. And like once people have been doing this step, I think like it's great to find like ways to like make sure that that like thinking the next steps, etc., is as also rewarding as possible. And I think that is really our bottleneck yet. Like people come up to us with a very specific question, and then they're like, okay, this is answered now. But then I think they are still forgetting about us, or like they think we maybe not be able to answer these questions as well. And I think it's really like how people see us, and I think that's
how you become part of their daily thinking and daily questioning and daily
I mean, we don't need to necessarily we don't need to be part of their life. Like that's not what we want. We want to be part of the decisions and actions they're taking that they think are relevant, and they want to have like a good feedback loop around that. And I think this is really where we want to be. Yeah.
And you said something very important about the farmer or land steward already have made the decision that they want something. Is that a potential risk or challenge when you start working with these organizations that want their farmers to transition, but maybe the farmers don't really want to? Like how are you gonna end up working with a lot of reluctant farmers that don't really want to move? Or how do you work with that? As in this case, the farmers come to you and say, I have this question, or I want to change this and this. And I mean, there's a different energy to it. If you going to work with a large cooperative that works with, I'm saying 200, 500,000, etc. farmers, how do you make sure you're not trying to drag them or nudge them or pull them or push them too much? Let's say that it's more a pull than a push.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Koen. Like, I don't think we are right now really in the business of changing people's minds. Like it's like we are far away already from some people, and so ensuring that is something that we are explicitly not focusing on yet. Yeah, and also probably not in the near future. But indeed, it is key. It's key for us that people are already thinking in a different way, and let's see what the next couple of years bring us, and if we maybe are soon also in the business of doing that as well.
Let's see. I mean, it also depends partly. I don't know if your business was even possible a year ago with ChatGPT. I think we're at 3.5 now, or anyway, the previous version. I don't know if it suddenly got unlocked now with large language models and all the excitement and all the development around it. But who knows what happens in the near future with that. I remember Marcel van den Berg, I think, mentioning in the Water Cycle series the excitement or the interest now in the new computer power and the ability, and this was on a landscape scale, to run different models and to run like a digital twin of a landscape and see with many different variables what would happen if you do X, Y, Z. And he said, 6 months ago, or even in that case, a few months ago, that wasn't possible, or at least we didn't know that was possible. And now suddenly we're in a whole different realm in terms of what we can show, what a landscape could look like with this and these interventions. And that kind of computer power wasn't there before. So of course it's impossible to predict that over the next years. But what would you say now to, if we do this, let's say in the fresh office or in Blue City with a room full of impact investors, and we talk about the role of technology in the regenerative transition. Of course, they're excited after our conversation, but what would be your main message to them, or what would you want them, if they walk out of Blue City in Rotterdam, if they walk out of that, what would be the main thing you want them to remember if we discuss this role of technology in this regenerative transition?
Good question. So we went, as FarmOn, we went from measuring outcomes and moved towards measuring practices. And then we went now to ensuring that practices are actually implemented well. And we did that
which
because
is a fascinating journey, because I remember the beginning with Fresh, you were really looking at cover crops and then outcome. Then, it's that journey itself, I think, should tell
and like so basically
to others.
I think what I really came also to realize is like, and this is also looking at from it in a very engineering kind of way, like the KPIs, the things that we measure in agriculture have been wrong. And like, for example, we measured yield in kilograms, right? And out of the sudden, the entire system optimizes towards yield in kilograms. And what we end up with is watery tomatoes. And I think as an investor, I wouldn't focus too much on measuring generalizable KPIs or anything, but really let like farmers and local people like set objectives that fit their context, right? And then measure these, and that's fine, but don't try to like, find like ways to measure regenerative agriculture, because it's probably not possible on a generalizable large scale. But what is possible is that locals come up with their own experiments, with their own objectives that they maybe try to hit, and then trust them that they're taking the right choice. And like, I think our system actually really embraces this idea that it's about the on-farm context, and that there cannot be just like an FAQ or like a YouTube video that is answering all your questions, but it always has to be curated in a way so that it's context specific. And so going away from measuring outcomes to measuring maybe outcomes and whatever is necessary on a local level, I think that is really how I would like to see like investors go into, and like, that's the direction they should go into maybe. Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting answer. And what if we flip the conversation in that sense, or put you in the driver's seat of a large investment fund? We usually say €1 billion or $1 billion, but in this case euros. And what would you focus on? What would you? I'm not looking for dollar amounts or euro amounts, but I'm definitely looking at what your priority list would look like if you had that to invest. Again, to invest, so at some point, could be extremely long, but at some point it should get back, preferably with a return. And we can discuss about non-extractive returns, how high, how low. But at some point it should get back. What would you prioritize? What would you focus on?
Yeah, I think one of the most important problems right now is also resilience of income. And I think climate change and many other like parameters basically let these create like bigger oscillations. And I think these oscillations need to be somehow mitigated against. And so what I would love to see is like a real crop insurance for regenerative agriculture that basically takes on and distributes the risks. And so that you as a farmer don't have to, take that necessarily. And I know
how
that
would you structure that, or how would you enable that?
Yeah, I think that is still a problem, because it goes exactly against like what I just said about measuring outcomes. But I think with computation, with like certain like localized ways of doing things, we can find ways to make agriculture more resilient. And I think, regenerative agriculture will be the norm and will be a non-topic soon, because that is the way of how we're going to go forward and how everyone is going to go forward.
And to ask a question, I don't know what your bubble in that sense looks like, or your peers, maybe within Fresh in the cohort, or let's say within the startup community of regenerative food and agriculture. Where do you think differently? And definitely this question comes from John Kempf. What do you believe to be true about regenerative agriculture that others don't? he always asks about agriculture in general, but I like to ask it about regenerative agriculture. Like, where are you contrarian when you meet your peers in this space?
I think just what I just said, like regenerative agriculture will soon be a non-topic because everyone needs to do it. And basically, if I think about the total addressable market for FarmOn, it's basically every farmer who needs to do things differently, and this is going to be everyone. And so, and I think that's going to come rather sooner than later.
Why is that, and how soon? As soon as like months, years? What do you see?
I would say the next. Of course, I don't know, but let's say 10, 20 years, everyone. But in some areas already much sooner. And maybe it will be called differently, or like the focus is not so much on regeneration, but on resilience or so. But I think, like people are flexible, and farming is flexible, and farming has always been changing. And I truly believe that what we think about when we think about regeneration, like that it is a way that will lead the future.
And if you could, we call it the magic wand question, if you could change one thing overnight, what would it be?
Let everyone do what they want to do. And so farming therefore needs to be super attractive, right? And I think that's really what we want. We want to have the profession, or like you're also talking often about land stewardship. And I think it needs to be something people want to do and choose. And I think we need to change the incentives in a way that it becomes attractive. And yeah, farming is a sexy career path that people that maybe did not inherit a farm do anyways, because it's really cool. And so, yeah, letting everyone do what they want to do.
And what do you see as the biggest barriers for that to happen? Is it land prices? Is it the general margins on farming? Is it, like you said, we have to align incentives differently? What are the big ones there for you that are holding us back? Is it the knowledge piece? Definitely could be.
I don't think it's necessarily knowledge piece. I think for many it is, like how much money do I make, and what is like the risk that I'm taking? And like, if I think about starting a startup, like I also basically withhold myself from having a good income through a tech job. And I'm expecting much higher risk, like rewards in the end from my doing that. And I think as a farmer, you basically have similar risks as like someone who's creating a startup, or even higher, because like I can always go back to my programming job and I'm going to be well off. But you have these high risks and sometimes very little rewards. And I think we need to somehow work on that. Like basically create higher rewards. And I think a lot of that has to do with money. Yeah. So we need to find ways and business models that make farming very attractive.
And do you see that more in getting more of, let's say the food dollars and food euros to the farm, or maybe in how to reward farmers and land stewards for other things? And of course, you look deep into that. The other services they provide on a landscape scale, on a cooling the planet, on water cycle restoration, on water filtering, carbon, biodiversity, the whole thing. Which one of the two do you feel like is a bigger lever? Food or ecosystem services, which is a horrible word.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I think the talking, so was in the Farm Food Climate Festival in Germany the other week, a couple of weeks ago. And then we had this discussion with quite some farmers who explained like what they think about ecosystem services. And the majority literally answered, actually, I just really like making food. And I think this is, again, also let everyone do what they really want to do. Is like, if this is your objective and you really want to make food, you should make food. And so if that is what someone wants to do, they should do that. And I think that's also for me like the big lever. Like, everybody needs to eat, and so let's focus on that as well. And all the other things are great, but we should accept that not everyone wants to be a land steward in a sense of like taking care of some birds on a field. Yeah, like it's not everybody's thing.
Yeah, but I think you can argue, if you do the food piece well, the others, I wouldn't say come automatically, but it would be a shame if you have created other values to not capture some of that and make your journey easier. But yeah, you already have so many balls in the air as a farmer that it could be a great distraction.
Yeah, I mean, I would find it quite weird if out of the sudden, like, it makes more sense to not harvest from your land anymore, right? And it's more attractive to just let it rest or let it bear and not bear. But
no, of course. I think it's that intersection between biomass production and part of it is to harvest and extract, and part of it is not, and that's the dance. But at some point now you see, and that we close, but it's more profitable to rent out your land for solar fields than it is to farm, and then we get, of course, energy is important, electricity is important, but food probably a bit more. So there's definitely some misaligned incentives, let's say, to
absolutely.
At the moment,
nobody ever said it's an easy question to answer, right? If there's big and nice, interesting business incentives, then I think people will change their behavior. Like I truly believe so. So if it's attractive to do ecosystem services, then people will do it. Yeah.
And they still need the knowledge, which is the start, and in this case, the end of the conversation as well. I think it's a good moment to wrap up. I want to thank you so much for coming on and share about your journey and of course, the work you've been doing on creating this collective intelligence system for regenerative farming. It's early, but it's also very exciting. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll be following this story and this venture as it develops over time.
Thank you so much, Koen, for the podcast. And everyone, please try the thing. Yeah.
Ask difficult questions.
Exactly.
Important questions, more important questions.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. For the show notes and links we discussed in this episode, check out our website, investinginregenerativeagriculture.com/posts. If you like this episode, why not share it with a friend or give us a rating on Apple Podcasts? That really helps. Thanks again, and see you next time.